All right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Gather along. So, in tonight's episode, we're taking an exclusive look at the NBA as it is NBA tip-off, Tuesday, October 22nd. All right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. I won't lie to you all. I'm a little bit out of my element to start the show in this one because, as you guys know, Russ is a great host, and I'm going to be the host tonight as we're tipping off the NBA season. My guy, Russ, he's going to come in a little bit later, and I think you guys will get a kick out of his setting and his location. To give you a hint, we're going to be talking shop. Just like you're at the barber shop talking ball with your buddies. So as you all heard, in this live episode, we will be exclusively talking NBA as it is opening night in the association. And there's really a ton to look forward to this season. I know Russ and I have been talking a bunch of football for the first 2.5 months that we've been doing this thing, but we figured, hey, let's give the NBA the spotlight tonight. So as we look forward into this NBA season, I'm thinking about the Eastern Conference. Will the Eastern Conference have a new finals representative this time around, or will the Celtics just steamroll through the East like they did last year in the playoffs? Is the Western Conference even deeper than it's been in the past? And does the NBA have a bit of a soft reputation? And can that reputation change for the better or for the worse this season? So all of that and more is coming your way. And I wanted to start off the show by saying this. You guys know I like to nerd out into the odds market a little bit and what the guys out in the desert are saying. Projections based off of what teams will do this upcoming season, how well teams will fare in the postseason. The race for the championship really is, according to the odds makers, as wide open as it has been in some time. 8 teams start this season with championship odds of 13-1 or better. And to compare that to, let's say, 7 seasons ago, going into the 2017-2018 season, only 2 teams had odds that were that favorable to win the championship. So that tells you a lot right there. You've got 8 more teams compared to 2. We've come a long way from the dynastic Warriors teams with Steph, Clay, KD, and Draymond, and LeBron in his prime. So, I'm not sure when Russ is going to come in here, but I can't wait to ask him, if he really believes that there are that many teams that could vie for a championship this season. In my opinion, I've always thought that there are more teams that could vie for a championship than the general public typically thinks there are. And then we know what happens in the postseason. Tons of injuries come up. Maybe a break or two doesn't go your way. So again, I can't wait to get my guy Russ in here for some of his thoughts. Not exactly sure when he's coming in, but I'll just start off. Let's take the 4 teams that were in each of the conference finals last season between the Celtics, the Pacers. Hey, there's my guy, Russ. The Mavericks and the Timberwolves. As I said, we were going to be talking shop, just like you're at the barber shop. And here we are, literally in a barbershop to some extent.
It's the salon, bro.
Yeah, salon. There you go. But Russ, how I want to kick off the show is asking you, do you really think there are that many teams at the starting point of the season that could vie for an NBA championship compared to years past?
Yeah, if you really ask me, I think the East Coast is pretty weak. But I think the West Coast is loaded, and every year it bounces back and forth between which conference is going to be the reigning conference and which is going to have the most competition. So by all means, man, I think that this year belongs to the West Coast. just based off of what we've seen in the postseason last year and how competitive it really was. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all those matchups. As you know, Peyton, the one thing I hate about watching West Coast basketball is how late it happens. That's the only thing that I really hate about it. But other than that, they play some really good ball out that way. So, but yeah, as far as the West Coast goes, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. I have my top 3 teams on in each conference. So I'm looking forward to exploring that topic a little bit more in the show. And guys, thank you for tuning in, man. Welcome to the last call.
Yeah,
it's the last call, but it's actually like round 1. I don't know, like I don't know how you sell that, but it starts tonight, Peyton.
See, there goes the host in his element. We needed a little bit more of that juice from the actual host himself, the host and the expert, if I should say. But Russ, I think you make a great point, because when you look at the Western Conference, there are really only 2 teams that I'm ruling out of the playoff race between the Jazz and the Trailblazers. You look at the 13 other teams in that conference, I wouldn't be surprised if we're midway through the season and all 13 of those teams are relatively close to at least the play-in tournament. Would you agree with that?
I definitely agree. I think, like I said before, it's really a toss-up on the West Coast. Like, you would think that you have your teams that's gonna be bottomed out, but there's no real telling. Like, just like what we've seen in the NFL, and we're not talking NFL tonight, but I just bring that up to say this: there's a lot of injuries that happened this year in the NFL. So as long as the teams can stay healthy, I think we'll have those teams that are predicted to be the top seeded teams come out on top. But you know, as far as the play-in tournament goes, that's really a toss-up. That's really a toss-up. So just for me, I'm really looking forward to seeing where the Spurs will sit this year after having a not top tier season last year, but 100%. Having some quality talent. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with them. And amongst other headlines across the NBA, there's so many storylines that we got to get to. So yeah, man.
Absolutely, man. And not to go away from that, but I do have a bit of a rant. I don't know if you guys saw the ESPN website come out with their top 100 players in the league. And I got to be honest, this is part of the drunk dial hotline, and I'm the one calling in. I'm the drunk guy calling in for this hotline. And I got to say, first of all, here's the lesson of the day. Don't succumb to peer pressure, and don't be afraid to think for yourself, because I think the people that made this list for the ESPN top 100 NBA players, specifically the top 10, they kind of just went with the wave. They weren't willing to think for themselves and think outside of the box. Now, I wouldn't even go as far as saying think outside of the box, just really thinking rationally if you really break down the players at the top of this league. So first of all, I'm just going to be honest. This was probably one of the worst lists I've ever seen, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, they didn't acknowledge that right now there's clearly not a best player in the league. I think you've got a group of 3, 4, maybe 5 guys that are jumbled up at the top, but to me, there is no clear-cut best player in the league, and it's been like that for quite some time now. And the other problem I have with this list is that they did there's no context around what makes certain players better than the next player. Like, what's the criteria why this player was ranked ahead of this player, so on and so forth. So I just want to get into the list a little bit. Russ, I don't know if you got a chance to see who they rated as the top 10 players on that list. But I was pretty surprised.
You give me your thoughts and I'll piggyback off of you.
Okay, I got you. So, oh man, a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're working through it as my email keeps popping up. But let's just go to the top 3 players on the list, okay? In my opinion, they all have major flaws in their game, starting with Nikola Jokic. Obviously, he can be a big-time liability defensively, but also he can be a reluctant jump shooter at times. Okay, there are
Okay.
times where he's holding the ball at the top of the key. He's wide open. The shot clock's running down. He doesn't even want to shoot it. So that's a bit of a flaw in his offensive game to me. He's a bit of a streaky shooter here and there. Let's move to the next guy, Luka Doncic. Okay, I could go to the same point up front in that he's a subpar defender. And then when you look at his position, he's not nearly the caliber of athlete that some of the guys at his position are. You go to the next player, Giannis doesn't have a fluid pull-up jumper game. His scoring is pretty one-dimensional. Screw it. Let's go.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Is Luka at number 9?
No, they put Luka at number 2. I'm going from top. I'm going from top to bottom.
Okay. Because I was about to say, oh my gosh. All right. Okay. Carry on. Continue.
So going from top to bottom, now we're getting into that 4, 5, 6 range. Let's go to number 4. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has not physically filled out his frame yet. And let's be honest, in the playoffs last year, he relied on the whistle a little too much. And we know that in the playoffs, the refs swallowed the whistle a little bit. Jason Tatum, we all know his game has regressed to some degree. No one's putting him at the top of the league. Steph Curry, as great as he is at his position, naturally there's only so much you can do at that size, and he's had his fair share of injuries. He's not getting any younger. So I really think you could take the bottom of this top 10. I would rather take the guys at the bottom and throw them up top, as crazy as that sounds. Because
hey, are you done with your drunk dial hotline? Because I have another caller on the line.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the caller is actually me, and I just want to let everybody know that you must be smoking some heavy dope if you think you could take that list and put them to the top.
Why not?
All right, everybody at the bottom of that list is a wash. Honestly, I think that Luka Doncic is probably the best player, if not top 2 for sure in the NBA. The fact that Jason Tatum is up there and Jaylen Brown is not up there is crazy. Okay, Nikola Jokic, I get it. He's probably one of the most dominant big men in the game right now, and he's an unstoppable force. So seeing him at number 1 is really like a toss-up between him and Luka. Like, these are 2 players. You talk about them being athletes, but it's not really about being an athlete. It's about the IQ of the game. And with that being said, these are 2 of the highest IQ players in the game right now, aside from LeBron James. And we see what his IQ has gotten him over the past 21 years. So yeah. With that being said, man, I love where the picks are. But I think that they're also smoking some dope by not putting Jaylen Brown up there, because we've seen exactly what he can do. And he got his money and he earned it and he deserved it. So by all means, like bro, I think you are crazy if you think that you could take the bottom half of that list and say that they're better than the top 3 players on that list.
But even with that said, you've got to give me this, Russ. Those top players, according to that list, they easily have major flaws in their game. I can poke some holes in those players' games. I mean, we saw Luka in the finals wasn't even close to playing a lick of defense. I mean, you had 2 guys running by him at times. So
I don't think this list is based off of individual values of defensive skill set. I think most of these players that's on this list is based off of offensive game, and you can't deny Luka or Jokic. Like they're 2 of the most talented offensive players in the game. They can go get a bucket whenever they need to get a bucket, and they have proven that time and time again. The Mavericks probably wouldn't have been in the finals if it wasn't for Luka. All right. And you cannot discredit Kyrie Irving, but by all means, Luka, I can't remember what game it was, but literally at the end of that game, he put the team on his back and he willed that team to a victory. So in the 3rd round. So by all means, like you can't deny them. And then Jokic is a Finals MVP, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what we're really talking about right now. And I get that you can look at the list from a glance and say that, but I think this list is more proactive than reactive. And I think that's where the perspective that you're coming from.
Correct. And you know me, I like to project a little bit. There's a guy sitting at number 10 that has already taken the league by storm. And I'm going to go ahead and project and say that once this season comes to an end, he'll cement himself as a top 3 player in the game. And we all know who that is. I don't even need to say his name. You could probably guess him.
I can't guess it. Go ahead. Not
Anthony
sitting at
Edwards.
Oh, AE. Oh, yeah. AE, he's something different.
That's an easy one. I mean, I don't know what they don't see in him to put him all the way at 10.
Yeah.
I mean,
so I do want to get to the MVP on tap segment because we're talking about a lot of players right now that I have projected to win MVP. And honestly, I don't know who has the better odds to win MVP, but I know who I see winning MVP. So
yeah.
So I love the fact that you brought up Anthony Edwards. That's a bit of foreshadowing to my MVP projection.
To be fair, on my other point, do you think it's easy to say that there's not a clear-cut best player in the game? Like we know that when Jordan was in his prime, Kobe was in his prime, LeBron was in his prime. Nobody was arguing that. Right now, is there really a clear-cut player?
Peyton, man. I guess I'm a little biased.
Yeah.
But I do think that for a 25-year-old, I do believe that Luka Doncic is probably the best player in the NBA.
Okay. And I do he's the one that I think they got pretty close to being right. I would say he's in that top 3 to 4 for sure for me.
Who would be number 1 for you?
Right. So I'm going to continue with my point in saying that there's no clear-cut best player, and this is going to blow some people's minds, but I don't really care. It's what I think. I think the 3 best players are Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, and still LeBron James, as crazy as that sounds.
I mean, it's not crazy. But man, you know, it's wild that in his 21st season, he's still considered one of the top players in the NBA. So you got to give him credit for that. Like you can't deny him for that. But man, that's very interesting that he's still considered, and he's proven it night in and night out. You know.
Yeah, and talk about trying to poke holes in someone's game. I believe as he's gotten healthier, I know I keep harping on the defensive side of the ball, but his defense has gotten better too.
Yeah.
So we can go ahead and move on to our segments, but I just wanted to get that off my chest. I don't know how you guys feel about that list. Maybe it is more clear-cut than I'm thinking, but that's what I saw.
Hey, before we move on to you know, the segments, the rest of the segments in the show, man, I just want to go ahead and take some time to give my spiel about the NBA season. All right. So with that being said, man, I think that we are aligned for a great season in the NBA. Peyton, you talked about all the storylines that's coming out, man. I think that we have some rookies that have points to prove, and I think that we are as close as we possibly can be to being comparing the NBA today to 90s basketball. And I think we have certain players to thank for that. Anthony Edwards being one of them. The way that he plays with force, the way that he you know, injects himself into the game, and the way that he can take over. You got the Dallas Mavericks, you know, the way that they play the game. It's a little iffy sometimes, but by all means, I think that we are at a stage where we can consider the NBA to be one of the most competitive stages that it's been in a long time. And I think that we can sit back, relax, grab our popcorn, and really have a good time watching and enjoying this season. It's a long season, 82 games all across the board. But by all means, I think that we are at prime for a very interesting season. And I did want to talk on some of the storylines that's coming out. And one storyline that I'll be watching very, very closely is how Klay Thompson, you know, reacts or plays alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I think that was one thing that they were missing, was shooting in last year's finals. So if Klay Thompson can be a fragment of himself, by all means, I think that they have opportunity to either go back or really make it far in the Western Conference. But if they don't win a championship, I think this is a wasted move. but we see that happen time and time again. So Peyton, I'm gonna bring you back in, and then we can move on to the segments. But I also I want to talk about the Spurs. I think the Spurs are primed for an amazing season with the addition of Chris Paul. And right now, the other player that they have, not Wemby, but they have another player on their team that's a force. His name is kind of slipping me right now. But by all means, I think that the Spurs are going to surprise a lot of people this year. And I guess the overall main headline going into the season is, will the Celtics be able to do it again? So my answer to that is no. I don't see it happening.
I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah.
I think the Eastern Conference will be healthier come playoff time this time around.
It won't be the 76ers, I can tell you that.
Hey, man, they've already ruled out Embiid and Paul George for game 1, so just forget about them.
It won't be the Sixers, but I do like the Knicks, and I hate to say that as a Heat fan.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to shots fired. I don't know if you want to go first or I can go first, but my shot fired for this NBA season will be that I believe both NBA teams that reside in Florida will not only make the playoffs, but make it to the second round of the playoffs. And let's start with your Miami Heat.
Okay.
So I can't even tell you who some of those impact players are going to be, because we know they always surprise us with some unsung heroes that you didn't see coming.
Right.
But I can trust Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra to get the most out of those guys, and you can never count that team out. And I also think that Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo is one of the more underrated duos in the NBA. And then as far as the Magic go, truly a homegrown operation, counting on player development at a rapid pace. And it's a mix of unique players. And now that I think they got a taste of the playoffs from last year, they're itching to get back. And they've got a ton of players that are rising, still improving. So that's my shot fired for this season. Both teams from Florida not only make the playoffs, but make it to the second round and maybe even see each other at some point in the playoffs.
That would be very interesting, Peyton. That would be very interesting. And you know that the Magic and the Heat, they started their seasons in the same year in 1989, but it's always been big brother, little brother for the Magic and the Heat. So with the Heat being big brother,
hey, can't deny it.
Yeah, so I that would be very interesting. That's a low-key rivalry. I wouldn't even say it's like a high-key rivalry, but that's a low-key rivalry. And both of those teams, they try to get, bragging rights every time they play each other. So
absolutely,
the Magic are gonna be a force to be reckoned with this year, I believe. So that game 7 loss, and I don't really want to talk about how it all went down and everything like that, but man, if they didn't learn a lesson from that last year, and if it didn't put a fire in their stomachs, I don't know what we're doing. I really don't know what we're doing.
So are you going with my shot fired? Are you agreeing with me or downplaying it to some extent? I
agree with you, actually.
Okay.
I wouldn't downplay it. My only issue is the Heat. I would put the Orlando Magic going further than the Heat in the playoffs, but you can never count the Heat out, because you can say they're gonna make the playoffs, but you don't know what they're gonna look like by the end of the season. So right. And that's what happened with them last year. So I would love to see the Heat move on to higher rounds in the playoffs, but it's hard to sit here and say they're going to do it for sure, because I have no idea what they're going to have going on at the end of the season. And that's the biggest question mark about that organization.
That's fair. What is your shot fired, man?
So my shot fired, it goes to the entire NBA. I want to know, where is this money coming from that they're paying these players with? Because Peyton, me and you talked about it, man. Some of these players getting 5-year, $130 million contracts. Like, bro, me and you, we picked the wrong profession. All right. So if I think I still got a couple more, bounces in the knees. So I think I can probably try out for the G League or something, man. 'Cause I need to find my way to the NBA if I can, man. When is the next tryout? Please let me know, man. I don't know. Peyton, you looked it up, man. Can you tell me some of these players that were getting these crazy contracts?
Sure. So I've got two at mind at the top of my head. Okay. So Jalen Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks, so forward, he got
Yes,
5 years, 150 mil. And
crazy.
then another Jalen, as we know, Jalen Suggs for the Orlando Magic, who also got 5 years, slightly over 150 mil. Like you said, there's a ton of money to go around in the league right now. And I really think that we're at a breaking point in the NBA to some extent, because you've got teams that are willing to commit into young players,
Yeah.
and they're seeing through their development and their growing pains. And it's a big risk. You know what I mean?
So
So
with these two players that you mentioned, do you think they are well deserving of these contracts that they got?
it's interesting. I'll start with the Magic because I'm more familiar with the Magic.
Yeah.
Um, in my opinion, and there's some bias in this answer, obviously, but yes, I think when you think about what Jalen Suggs brings to the table, I would say he is worth it. And the other thing is the Magic have a lot of cap space. So it's almost like, are you going to let that guy walk, or are you going to keep that guy in-house, the guy that you've seen develop in front of your very eyes and who has a lot of potential? So
Right.
these teams are in a tough spot. Very different than the NFL. Now, as far as Jalen Johnson goes, I am pretty high on him. I don't know if he's worth that much money,
Yeah.
but the Hawks obviously think so, so they went with it.
To my point, man, the players right now they have the upper hand, right? So they have the leverage, and they are also entering another CBA. So this is this is crazy. Like they're going to be getting even more money, and just think about we could talk about those guys. They're making peanuts compared to what Steph Curry set out to make this year. All right.
Right.
So this man is almost $100 million man, and we haven't seen contracts this high in a long time. Like you got players, and I'm not saying that the NBA isn't, a dangerous sport, but you got players out there on the football field that's concussions left and right, and they're getting 15 million a year. If that, there's some out there that's putting their bodies on the line for even less than that. So I want to know where the money is coming from, and that's my shot.
I hear you, man. Yeah. That's a great talking point. Great discussion. So, man,
Right.
who is your MVP on tap?
Okay, I have three names in my head right now for MVP, and we already talked about two of them. That being Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, and Shai Gilgeous, SGA. So I think those three are set out to have point to prove caliber seasons. Now I think Luka has the biggest point to prove, and Anthony Edwards. So I think all three of them are on the same level of having a point to prove. But with Luka being so close to the pinnacle, I think he comes back and plays lights out, to be honest with you. And I think he's going to tear through the NBA this season.
Yeah.
And Anthony, it's going to be a close race between Anthony Edwards and Luka, to be in my opinion.
No doubt.
So those would be my three MVPs on tap, and I'm looking forward to watching really all three of those teams. And yeah, so I guess to say this, my MVP is coming out of the West.
Fair.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
What about you?
Yeah, so I already hit on it at the top of the show, but my MVP on tap is obviously Anthony Edwards. I mean, this was an easy one, and if you're buying stock in any player in the NBA right now, it's got to be this guy.
Yeah.
I know he's already taken the league by storm to some degree, but like I said at the top, I think he cements himself as the best two-way player in the game by the end of the season. And I'll just go back to what I said earlier. it's hard to poke holes in his game. Now, he is a younger player, so he still needs to get some more playoff experience, but he did get to the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
I think he's on a mission, and I really just like his mindset as a player. I think he's got it all, and he's my MVP on tap, no doubt.
Okay, I like it. I mean, we right there in the same boat, so I think that we're set. One of us gonna win the money, hopefully.
There you go. Let's put our futures down now.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, futures are cruel.
I cannot do it. Knowing my luck, and let me knock on some wood, but I put my money down and he go out and tear a ligament the first game. So I can't do it personally.
Hey, I'm knocking on wood too because nobody wants to see that.
Not at all. All right. So as far as penalty shots go, hey, so I guess I have a question for you.
All right.
Who do you think will be a better fit, or who would have a bigger role in the Lakers organization this year? Will it be Dalton Connect or will it be Bronny James?
Ooh, that's a great question.
We're gonna see how much playing time Bronny James get tonight. I don't know what their plans are, but he might start and then they might pull him like after the first possession. I don't know what they're gonna do, but
to answer your question, I think Dalton Connect at this point is more of the plug and play player.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got the shooting upside, but then just scoring overall as well. I mean, it's to the point where if he has a smaller guy on him and there's a mismatch, he can put his back to the basket and go get a bucket. I don't know if Bronny has that in his game yet. So when it comes to stretching the floor, being a more versatile defender, and just scoring, I would have to go with Connect at this point. But obviously, Bronny James is such a great story, and I could see him having some impact at some point in the season as well. What say you?
It's easy to say Dalton Connect, but I don't know what kind of influence LeBron has in the locker room, and maybe he vouches for his son. Maybe Bronny goes out there, proves himself. I don't know what the case may be. So we'll see what the Lakers and JJ Redick have in store, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing Redick coach this team up, man.
Yeah.
So I think he has a wonderful mind when it comes to the game of basketball, and we'll see what it turns out to.
Yeah. So my penalty shot goes out to the Philadelphia 76ers, and I know we already hit on them earlier.
Man.
But like I said, we haven't even started playing games yet, and we're already dealing with injuries.
Yeah.
And this team just feels predictable to me. The outcome at the end of the season feels as predictable as ever. They're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to flame out at some point in the first or second round. And that's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, for whatever reason, when Joel Embiid is your best player, it's just hard to get over that hump. It is. It's been tough. It's been tough for them to get over that hump with him as the best player.
Yeah.
I actually think Paul George has been more of a playoff riser than Joel Embiid. Paul George has actually been in a conference finals.
Some would say Maxi's the best player on that team.
Hey, predictable for them. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm not high up on the 76ers, but I did want to, before we get out of here, I did want to tell you some of the teams that I think that I'm looking forward to watching this season when it comes to how the playoffs and so on and so forth. I already touched on 3 of them, which would be OKC, Dallas, and Minnesota. But for the Eastern Conference, like I said at the beginning of the show when I came in, I'm looking forward to watching the Knicks perform. Jalen Brunson, he did a lot last year. He didn't get any help, and they traded away Randall, and they got Cat. So I'm interested to see where that storyline, what that turns into. And I'm also looking forward to watching the Orlando Magic, man. hopefully they can get over that hill, man. So
Yeah,
it's gonna be a long season.
it is, man. We're bracing for it. We're ready for it.
And we got games tonight, man. And
we do.
So we got the New York Knicks taking on the Boston Celtics. The over under for that game is 200. I think it's 228 points. It went up. It went up
significantly.
Yeah. So are you taking the over or are you taking the under for this game? First game.
Maybe betting over-unders in basketball will do me well as opposed to betting over-unders in football.
Yeah.
I'll go under. First off, I don't see it going into overtime. I see the Celtics getting a win in regulation. So,
right.
And the Knicks are always about defense, even on night one of the season. I'll go under for fun here. What say you?
I'm definitely taking the under. I can see this game being somewhere around 210 points. Even if it get to 220, which I don't expect it to get to 220, because that's actually pretty high, especially for a game one matchup. You know, everybody's ready to play, everybody's, you know, hyped and stuff like that. But with these types of games, you know, they come out and it's a slow start. You come out and it's, you know, miss. Basket finally goes in, and then now we're off to the races. So the first 3 to 4 minutes of this game can be, you know, just a filling out match. Like it could be a boxing match. So you never know, but I don't see it going up to 228 at all. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. That's a great point, especially breaking into the game, first game of the season.
Yeah,
it can be like that sometimes, getting the rust off, you know, missing some baskets early. I like that point.
Yeah.
All
right, Peyton, let's go ahead and watch the game, man. Tip off. I don't know if they started yet, but tip off is about to happen real soon if it hasn't happened already. And
for sure,
let's go. Let's get to it, man.
Yeah.
Welcome to the NBA season, man. We're gonna be here all season long. You know, tune in. We got our Monday show, Tuesday, Friday show. Oh, speaking of which, I'm glad I mentioned the Friday show. Guys, we will not be having a show this Friday. Unfortunately, we tried to work some things out, but it's just not going to work in our schedule. So with that being said, man, we will catch you guys next week. And thanks for tuning in. Peyton, anything you want to tell the people before we head up out of here?
Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with me as I tried to be the host at the beginning of the show. Thankfully, my guy Russ came in and saved the day. But
you did a good job, bro. You did a really good job. I'm proud of you, man. And you can hold down anytime for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sticking around and watching me get my hair braided. Shout out to my girl Ash back there. She getting me right. And yeah, next time y'all see me, I'm gonna have that thing laid down.
There you go.
You know, looking real good. So
really in the shop. Really in the shop. I love it.
Shop, literally. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right, Peyton, man, I'll let you be on your way. Hopefully we have a good night of basketball. And hopefully that our under pick is not a cold take by tomorrow. So
oh man. We'll find out in the next segment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. All right. With that being said, man, everybody, y'all have a safe evening. Be blessed out there. And talk to y'all later.
Talk to y'all later.
Good stuff.
Good stuff, man.